All right, update before 2 weeks before the Pacific Northwest R2 Builders Club meetup at the Seattle Museum of Flight on November 9th. Showing what I got done this season. Starting with the entire vent assembly. All the things that I'm showing were already printed, but I did all of the finishing, prep work, sanding, filler, and painting. So I got my speakers attached, the speaker grills in, I've got coin slots in, I've got all of the greebles in the body in. I've got all 4 doors in. Just did the charge bay door the other day. That was my main goal this year, and I did get it done. Not happy with the paint. I think I mentioned that already. The same paint that I had used before, and it looks different. This is a really good example here. So these two are the exact same can. This one, without being able to maneuver where I can get a light reflection on it. This one, the paint came out really thick, and so it's more smooth than the rest of my body. My body has a slight texture to it. These are really smooth, and the shade is different, which, important tip, try to buy cans of the same batch. I think there's like numbers on the bottom of the cans. I waited 2 years in between printing or painting the body and doing the doors. And even though I thought that the can I had was of the same vintage, I bought it before I quit working 2 years ago, it still came out different. This one has a texture that pretty much matches the body. So when I painted this with the same can as this, and I don't even know if any difference shows up on camera between those two panels, I used a heat gun to warm up the paint can. The trick that you'll see online is to warm some water in like a small pan on the stove and then put your spray can in it to warm it up before you paint. I just used a heat gun outside because I was in a hurry to get this part done. This is the first one I did. This one is also with the same can. So this door, and the breadpan door there, all done with the same can, and they all look different. So, and none of them match the body. So I'm just gonna have to live with it unless I weather it. That would probably make it so it's not so noticeable. And, you know, everybody's their worst critic, so a lot of people won't even notice, but it really bothers me. So when I heated the can, the reason you heat a can before you use it is because it will make the spray finer. So this spray came out pretty thick when I was painting it, and that's part of why it's smoother. The paint had more time to kind of flow before it dried, whereas this, I heated the can, so it was a finer spray coming out, and I held it a bit further back while I was painting this door because I wanted kind of the same texture, thinking it would make it look more like the body. But still it doesn't. Now, I don't know if that's because I didn't put enough coats on and I'm seeing gray primer like coming through the white, or just because the body has been sitting here for 2 years and it's, you know, aged and slightly changed colors. I don't know, but it is what it is, and it's past the time to be able to really paint this year. It's Pacific Northwest, raining and high humidity, and I don't have a setup in my garage to paint. But I am very happy that I got the body done. So the next thing was this Thursday. I'm filming this on a Monday evening. Thursday is Halloween. And then, like I said, I'm 2 weeks from taking this to a show for the first time. And my dome before this year was just this dome I printed in 2017 that I was not going to use. I was going to give away because I wasn't happy with it. It was an older printer that wasn't that good of a quality. Mainly the edges here still need some work. They're not as crisp as I would like. And then the big ones are area here and the other side where I just couldn't get it round enough. It's just not quite there. It needs more work getting those areas smooth, but the rest of it's pretty darn good. But I decided not to use that dome, so I just put it on R2 to have a dome on him and to be able to use the dome rings and make sure that I got everything moving right and everything working. So I decided, after finding a bunch of dust in the electronics, because it sat for 2 years with all these panels open, and dust was just filtering down into the inside of the droid, I decided to put the pie panels on and these side panels. And then I thought, well, why don't I just try and get the dome put together for the show as best I can without paint, because it's not really time to paint. And so that's what I embarked on. So everything is just kind of hot glued in place. If you try to twist these or push them, they'll just fall into the body because they're just hot glued, and not like a ton of hot glue, just enough to keep them in there, just hoping at the show that nobody or meetup, whatever, that nobody knocks things through into the droid. But it wouldn't even hurt anything, most likely, if they did. But everything's pretty much just hot glued. I had to do a little bit of sanding for some of the panels, and they're not, perfect fit. These I reprinted because I didn't want to put the ones that I was going to use in here. They have holes for hinges in them already. And so I just printed these off with some blue I had, and then I realized, oh wow, that blue is really close to the actual R2 blue, and it's like, well, should I just reprint everything in that blue, and then maybe I could just do a quick, paint on the dome, and it won't be perfect, but it'll be at least blue and, silver. And then I decided, no, it's, I got enough things going on. Let's just try and hot glue everything together and see if we can get it just, so it's more like R2 instead of a droid with just a skeletal primered head. At least it's a multicolored primered head with, all of his features that it's an R2 unit at least. So that's what I embarked on, and everything's glued in, like I said. I'm going to print the Michael Baddeley Mark IV droid, and reading up more on it, everything needs to be redone anyway. The Mark IV dome has built-in holes for mounting hinges for the panels. The panels have slots in them, and the hinges just go into the slots. So the pie panels are different. The dome is different. All of the panels that move have the implementation of where the hinge slots into the panels. The logic lights are held in differently. The hollow projectors are supposed to be more accurate, and they twist and lock in, where these are just hot glued in. The eye is also, I don't know if he updated the design of it, but it's got 4 holes in the back, and there's also holes in the dome that aren't drilled all the way through in case you want to, you know, move the eye wherever you want it exactly. But he's made it so that if you just drill through the already pre-started holes in the Mark IV dome, they'll match up with the holes he did in the Mark IV eye, and it gets it really close to, you know, what was used in A New Hope, even though scene to scene the eye, you know, kind of moves around a bit. Different droids and damage and putting things back together, they were never exactly in the same place all the time. So once I realized everything I had needed to be reprinted, I thought, well, maybe I'll just bring this to the show and maybe I can sell the dome. Maybe somebody would pay a few bucks for this dome and then just undo the hot glue and paint the parts, and it would save them some time. Or maybe one of the people that makes backdrops. I saw some of the builders a couple years ago at the Rose City Comic-Con in Oregon, and they have a really cool like Jawa, you know, workshop backdrop where they have some droid parts and things, and maybe somebody would use it for that. So that was my idea, is just kind of hot glue it together, take it to the show, and basically hope I don't come back with it, because I have another one of these same domes that I have all the outer parts glued together, but this gray part here, this is actually two pieces split down the middle, and you glue them together, and then you glue here all the way around to get this top section. So I never glued the two pieces together or on to the other dome I have, but I glued all of the main pieces together. So I have this dome I don't need and another one I don't need. So I'd really like to get rid of both domes because I simply don't have room for them. And if somebody can use them for some kind of a cool project, that would be neat. So the other dome I would probably just give away, even though there is, I think it's, I can't even quite remember, but I'm pretty sure it's over a spool of filament to do the main dome parts. But yeah, that one I don't really care much about other than getting rid of it, whereas this one has got all of the work and time I put into printing everything. You know, maybe it's worth something. And then the last thing is, because Halloween is Thursday, I'm actually thinking of putting the lights in. Back in I think it was 2017, when I made this dome, when I was just going to make a dome and nothing else, I ordered the kit and assembled the Thesis. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing that right. I've heard it pronounced different ways. The Thesis LED lights for the Logics, for these lights here, and these, and the holo projector lights. I've got that entire setup, and back after I built it, I tested it, and it works. And so I was thinking, if by Thursday I have enough time, after I mount the dome, obviously this is right now held on by tape. I just the other day put the 100 centimeter globe piece in there, painted it satin black from the back, but because it's gloss plastic, it doesn't matter if you use gloss black, flat black, matte black, whatever paint you use on the back of the plastic, because it's gloss on the front and you're painting the back, it's going to look gloss. So I just did that a couple days ago, and I will be mounting this to the dome, and that will be the minimum that I want to do before taking it, calling it done for the show. But again, I think I might put the Thesis in, and then maybe at the show I'll say the whole thing, even the lights, for sale, and just try to kind of get back the money I spent on the Thesis lights, because I like the AstroPixel setup, and I think I might want to go with the AstroPixel version of the lights instead of the Thesis. So if I could, that would be the dream, I guess, if I could just sell the dome for at least what I just paid for the Thesis kit. If you buy the assembled, you can still buy the whole assembled Thesis on astromech.net. I think they also sell the kit. But if you buy, obviously, the kit, it's cheaper than buying it assembled because it's a whole bunch of little LEDs that you have to solder onto circuit boards to get the thing working. And I did all that work. So if I could sell the whole dome and the Thesis and get my Thesis money back and then use that on AstroPixels, I think that would be cool. So that's kind of what I'm hoping maybe I can do at the show. But yeah, just finally, gosh, was that yesterday? It was either 1 or 2 days ago. I just put the charge panel door on. Unlike the breadpan doors and this door where I painted primer and then did a satin clear over it, this one I just did white. And another thing I did, don't know if it was a smart move or not, it's made to have a magnet right here. I filled that, so you can't see that it was ever there. This is where a magnet goes into the back of this, and so it helps keep it closed because in the Mark III droid, Michael Baddeley didn't put provisions for this being opened by a servo, so you kind of have to make up your own servo mount to do that, but I wanted to do it, so I decided to just fill that hole where the battery would go. And the reason I have 2 of these doors, I actually have 3. I have the one that I printed back when I did the body printing in like 2020. It was a bit rough, so I reprinted this on my Prusa and much higher quality, so it took me less time to prep it, get it smooth. I found that this door, and you can kind of see right here, this door seems small. You can see that gap at the top is really big compared to this one. And the gap between the door and the body was also really big. So it kind of sat like, almost like that, almost where you could just about see the opening. And it looked to me like it's just too small in height and width. So I went online and I saw a couple people said they had that issue, and other people said no, it printed absolutely fine for them. So, you know, maybe it's got to do with the way I printed and assembled the different body panels. Maybe I've just got things a little bit off so that these 2 pieces here are a bit further apart than they should be. And these aren't quite flat as far down as they should be or something. I don't know. But I reprinted this on the Prusa and downloaded the file from Michael Baddeley's Patreon. So I knew I was dealing with the current file as opposed to the one that I printed in 2020, which I thought maybe there was something going on with that file and the current one is different. But this matches in size to the one that I printed in 2020. And like I said, it still looks like it's off in several directions. So I just decided to see if I could make it bigger. So I loaded this into Tinkercad and I messed around with it for quite a while. I basically, first I just loaded it into Prusa Slicer on the bed like this, and I said add 1 millimeter to the Y direction, so the width, and 1 to the Z, so the height. So I added 1 millimeter in height and width. Now when you do that, you're distorting these holes, which are just barely the right size for the little screws that I have. They barely tighten up in there. There's a danger of stripping them out. So if I'm increasing the height and the width, that means these will be a combination of off center because they'll move because I'm increasing the dimensions. So they'll be slightly in a different place than they are on this original one, and the holes will be a little bit bigger. So I actually messed around in Tinkercad and filled these holes in, and then I put a piece of paper over this door and I punched little holes where these are, and I measured with micrometer, and I transferred those measurements to this door and put the piece of paper that I had put on this one and punched, and so I could make sure that they were centered in the right spot and not higher or lower than this one, and drilled the holes. And I'm sure would be an easier way to do it. It was a pain in the neck, but it ends up, I think, fitting my droid better. Everybody's, your mileage may vary. So it seems to have worked, and that explains why I've got now two of these, a 2020 version, a 2024 version, and the final version of that door. So I think that's all I have to say. Things that still need to be done, well, I've got an entire dome to reprint and all of the greebles for it, and sand, finish, glue, blah, blah, blah. As far as what's left on the body here, I chickened out and I still haven't painted these. The angles, the fact that the blue, Sonic Blue paint, I'm not very good with. I tend to get runs. I chickened out. I held these off until I got all the rest of the body greebles done, and then there wasn't time to do these because I put it off too long. So these are still obviously in primer and need to be painted blue. The silver piece that goes in here needs to be done. This needs to be sanded. I mean, they're all printed. They just need to be sanded, filled, finished, painted. The buttons, the silver circle that goes in there. I would like to paint silver in between the notches here in the shoulder piece. I have a silver paint pen, but I haven't colored that in silver in between the shoulder and the leg, or shoulder and the shoulder cap, whatever. So it's actually, I'm not freaking out too much about it because literally the parts that I have left to finish for the leg, apart from freaking out about painting these, all fit in a plastic bag. A bag from, when you buy a 1 kilogram spool of filament. Some of them have like Ziploc at the top to help keep the moisture out. So I've got a eSun PLA Plus filament bag that holds all of the things for the body that I have left to sand and fill and sand and prime and repeat and then paint. So really getting down there. In fact, just the other day, yesterday, I put all of them into one plastic bin. So one plastic bin now holds all the things I need to paint, plus my multiple cans of different colored spray paint and primer, and my 2-part epoxy, and everything's in just one plastic bin. The electronics are in a second bin. That's a whole nother story. So I am getting very close. I'm hoping it's not a big deal that I don't have any of the actuators attached to these doors at the show. I mean, I don't even know if I'll be driving him around or not, but if I do come to a stop or his door's all gonna fly open, I don't know. I really don't want to put tape across the doors, but I'm not gonna have time to, you know, put linkages in and tape them in place inside to keep the door shut, I don't think, because my primary focus is to be finishing the eye. And then, like I said, I think I'm gonna try and get the TSIS lights installed, and that's gonna be more work than I'm realizing, mainly because of the holo projectors. I believe I have all the cables. I think the kit came with all the cables to attach the Logics. These, the one in the big panel in the back, PSIs. I think those might have cables that are long enough to attach them all, but the holos, I think I have to make my own cables to attach those, which I do have a DuPont crimp kit and some wires to do that myself, but yeah. We'll see if I actually get that done. But there we go. It's been a while since my last video, mainly because that charge bay door, I didn't want to make this video until I had that thing attached. And then I was doing the experiment with the paint, trying to see if I can get a closer match. So, yeah, I don't know, from here through the camera, it doesn't look bad at all. And again, yes, everybody's their own worst critic. You're going to see the flaws that nobody else is even going to see or care about in your own creations, but I'm happy and thrilled that I am making some progress, that I made some progress this year after 2 years of not doing anything with the printed parts.